What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved actresses turns a friendly chat into a full-blown disaster? In just 28 seconds, a single comment would unravel years of goodwill and end with security escorting a major star off one of television's most prestigious stages. This is the story of the night Jennifer Garner was kicked off the Graham Norton show. Graham Norton had built his empire on warmth, wit, and an uncanny ability to make even the most guarded celebrities feel at home. His red couch had hosted everyone from music legends to Oscar winners, and the formula was simple. Keep it light, keep it fun, and let the stars shine. So when Jennifer Garner's publicist confirmed her appearance, the production team was thrilled. She was known for being charming, down to earth, the kind of guest who could carry a conversation and make the audience fall in love with her all over again. The producers had no reason to expect anything other than a delightful evening. The show that night had a solid lineup. A British comedian was scheduled to open, followed by an up-and-coming musician, and then Jennifer as the main event. The audience filed in, buzzing with excitement. Graham took his place on stage, flashing that signature grin as the cameras started rolling. The first two segments went off without a hitch. Laughter filled the studio. The energy was electric. Everything was going exactly as planned. Then Jennifer Garner walked out. The applause was thunderous. She wore an elegant dress, waved to the crowd, and took her seat on the famous red couch. Graham stood to greet her with his usual enthusiasm, leaning in for the customary greeting. "Jennifer, welcome, welcome. So lovely to have you here," Graham said, his voice warm and genuine. Jennifer smiled, but there was something slightly off about it. A tightness around her eyes, perhaps. The audience didn't notice. They were too busy clapping. "Thanks for having me," she replied, settling into the couch. Graham took his seat, ready to dive into the conversation. "Now, you've been incredibly busy. New projects, the kids, all of it. How do you manage to keep everything balanced?" It was a standard opening question. Friendly. Easy. The kind of softball that guests typically appreciated. Jennifer's smile faded slightly. "You know, Graham, I get asked that question a lot. Only women get asked that question. Have you noticed that?" The studio went quiet for a beat. Graham's expression remained pleasant, but the producers in the booth exchanged glances. "Well, I suppose it's a fair question for anyone juggling a career and family," Graham offered diplomatically, trying to steer things back to comfortable territory. "Is it, though?" Jennifer pressed, her tone sharpening. "Because I don't hear you asking the men who sit on this couch how they balance it all. They just get to talk about their work." Graham kept his composure, nodding thoughtfully. "You make a valid point, and I apologize if the question came across the wrong way. Let's talk about your new film then. I hear it's quite the thriller." "Sure, we can talk about the film," Jennifer said, but her body language had shifted. She crossed her arms, her posture defensive. "Though I have to say, Graham, this whole setup is a bit much. Isn't it?" "The setup?" Graham asked, genuinely confused. "The couch, the audience, the whole spectacle. It's all very performative," Jennifer said, waving her hand dismissively at the studio around her. The audience members looked at each other, unsure if this was some kind of joke they weren't in on. Graham let out a small laugh, trying to lighten the mood. "Well, it is a talk show. Performance is rather part of the job description," he said with a gentle smile. "Right, but doesn't it ever feel fake to you?" Jennifer continued, leaning forward now. "All these celebrities coming on, telling their rehearsed stories, laughing at the right moments. It's also scripted." Graham's smile remained, but his eyes showed the slightest hint of concern. This was not going the way anyone had anticipated. "I like to think we create an environment where people can be themselves," Graham said carefully. "But if you're not comfortable, we can certainly take things in a different direction." "Oh, I'm comfortable," Jennifer said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "I'm just saying what everyone else is thinking. This whole industry is built on pretending." The producers were now fully alert in the booth, fingers hovering over buttons, wondering if they needed to go to a commercial break. Graham decided to push forward. So tell us about the film. What drew you to this particular project? Jennifer sighed dramatically. You really want to know? Or are you just reading off a card? I genuinely want to know, Graham replied, his patience evident, but wearing thin. Fine. I took the role because the pay was good and my agent said I needed to stay relevant. There. Is that honest enough for you? Jennifer said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. The audience sat in stunned silence. This was not the Jennifer Garner they knew from romantic comedies and action films. This was someone else entirely. Graham shifted in his seat, trying a different approach. Well, honesty is refreshing, and I'm sure the film is wonderful, regardless of the motivation. Is it, though? Jennifer shot back. Have you even seen it, Graham? Or do you just say nice things about every project because that's what you're supposed to do? I've seen clips, and I've read about it, Graham said, maintaining his professional demeanor. That's typically how we prepare for these interviews. Typical, Jennifer muttered. Just loud enough for the microphones to pick up. Graham took a breath, and the audience could sense his effort to remain gracious. Jennifer, I'm not quite sure what's happening here, but I want you to feel comfortable. If there's something bothering you, we can talk about it. What's bothering me, Jennifer said, her voice rising slightly, is that I'm sitting here, about to play this game, where I pretend everything is perfect, and you pretend to care, and then we all go home feeling like we accomplished something. It's exhausting. I do care, Graham said simply. That's not pretend. Jennifer laughed, but there was no humor in it. Please, you care about ratings. You care about getting good guests. You don't care about me. The accusation hung in the air. Graham's expression shifted from concerned to genuinely hurt. That's not fair, he said quietly. I've always tried to treat every guest with respect and genuine interest. Respect? Jennifer's voice was getting louder now. You want to talk about respect? You book me on this show, stick me on this couch like I'm just another product to sell, and then act like you're doing me a favor. Nobody thinks they're doing you a favor, Graham replied, his own voice gaining an edge. You agreed to come on the show. Your team reached out to us. Because that's what we have to do, Jennifer snapped. We have to make the rounds, smile for the cameras, sell the movie. It's all part of the machine. Then why are you here? Graham asked, the question direct but not unkind. Jennifer paused, seeming to consider this. You know what? That's a great question. She stood up abruptly, and the audience gasped. Graham remained seated, watching her carefully. Jennifer, please sit down, Graham said, his voice calm but firm. No, I don't think I will, Jennifer replied, looking around at the audience. You all came here expecting a show, right? Well, here it is. The real show, not the fake, polished version. This isn't necessary, Graham said, standing now as well. Isn't it? Jennifer challenged. When was the last time anything real happened on this stage? Real things happen here all the time, Graham countered. Real conversations, real laughter, real moments. Just because they're positive doesn't make them fake. Jennifer rolled her eyes. You're delusional if you believe that. The comment landed like a slap. Graham's expression hardened slightly, though he maintained his composure. I think perhaps you're having a difficult day, Graham said carefully, and that's okay. We all have them. But taking it out on me, on this show, on these people who came here to have a nice evening, that's not okay. Oh, here we go, Jennifer said mockingly. The moral high ground. Very classy, Graham. I'm simply trying to understand what's happening, Graham replied. What's happening is I'm done playing pretend, Jennifer declared. I'm done sitting here acting like this matters. Then perhaps you should leave, Graham said, and the audience drew a collective breath. The words were said without anger, but with a finality that made their weight clear. Graham wasn't kicking her off, not yet, but he was giving her the option to exit with some dignity intact. Jennifer stared at him, her expression unreadable. You'd like that, wouldn't you? Then you get to be the victim. Poor Graham, attacked by the ungrateful actress. I don't want to be a victim, Graham said evenly. I want to have a conversation. But if you're not willing to do that respectfully, then yes, I think it would be best if you left. Respectfully? Jennifer's laugh was sharp. You want me to respect this circus? I want you to respect yourself, Graham said, and something in his tone shifted. It was gentler now, almost sad. Because right now, you're not doing that. The observation seemed to strike something in Jennifer. Her face flushed, and for a moment she looked uncertain. But then the anger returned, fiercer than before. Don't you dare psychoanalyze me, she hissed. You don't know anything about me. You're right. I don't, Graham agreed. But I know what I'm seeing, and this isn't it. This isn't you. How would you know what I am? Jennifer demanded. Because I've interviewed hundreds of people, Graham said simply, and I can tell when someone is hurting. Whatever's going on, this isn't the way to handle it. Jennifer's eyes flashed. I don't need your pity or your amateur therapy session. I'm not offering pity, Graham said. I'm offering understanding, but you have to meet me halfway. I don't have to do anything, Jennifer shot back. The standoff continued, the tension in the studio almost unbearable. The audience sat frozen, unsure whether to intervene or simply witness what was unfolding. Graham made one more attempt. Jennifer, please, let's take a breath. We can start over. Fresh slate. For a split second, and it seemed like she might accept the olive branch. Her shoulders relaxed slightly, and her expression softened. Then she shook her head. No, I'm not going to sit here and let you make me feel like I'm the problem. I never said you were the problem, Graham replied. You didn't have to, Jennifer said bitterly. It's written all over your face. Poor Jennifer, having a breakdown on television. Well, guess what? I'm not breaking down. I'm breaking free. From what? Graham asked, genuinely curious now. From all of this. Jennifer gestured wildly at the stage, the cameras, the audience. From the expectations, the fakeness, the constant need to be likable. I'm done. Okay, Graham said slowly. If that's truly how you feel, then I respect that decision. But you don't need to burn everything down to make that point. Maybe I do, Jennifer said defiantly. Maybe that's the only way people will actually listen. People are listening, Graham said, gesturing to the silent audience. But what they're hearing isn't what you think. Jennifer looked out at the sea of faces, all staring at her with a mixture of shock and concern. What they're hearing, she said slowly, is someone telling the truth for once. No, Graham said gently. What they're hearing is someone in pain lashing out. And there's a difference. The words seemed to hit Jennifer harder than anything else that had been said. Her face crumpled for just a moment before she regained control. I'm not in pain, she insisted, but her voice wavered. Then why are you here, doing this? Graham asked. If everything is fine, why attack me? Why attack the show? Jennifer opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. She stood there, visibly struggling. Graham waited, giving her space to find the words. Finally, Jennifer spoke. Because it's easier than admitting the truth. Which is? Graham prompted gently. That I'm tired, Jennifer admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm so tired of all of it. The admission hung in the air, vulnerable and raw. For a moment, it seemed like a genuine breakthrough might be possible. But then Jennifer's expression hardened again. But that doesn't change anything. I still think this whole thing is ridiculous. Graham sighed, the disappointment evident on his face. I'm sorry you feel that way. Are you? Jennifer challenged. Or are you just sorry that your show is being disrupted? Both can be true, Graham said honestly. I'm sorry that you're struggling, and yes, I'm sorry that this evening has gone this way. But mostly, I'm sorry that you can't see that those of us here are trying to help." "I don't need help," Jennifer insisted. "Everyone needs help sometimes," Graham replied. Jennifer laughed bitterly. "Save the inspirational quotes for your next guest." That seemed to be the final straw. Graham's expression shifted from concerned to resolved. "I think we're done here," he said quietly. "You're kicking me off?" Jennifer asked, though she didn't sound surprised. "I'm ending an interview that stopped being productive about 10 minutes ago," Graham clarified. "You're welcome to stay if you'd like to have an actual conversation. But if you're going to continue like this, then yes, I'm asking you to leave." Jennifer stood taller, her chin lifting defiantly. "Fine, I'll leave, but not because you're asking me to, because I want to." "However you need to frame it," Graham said, his voice tired now. Jennifer grabbed her purse from beside the couch and turned to face the audience one last time. "You all deserve better than this," she said, though it was unclear if she was talking about the show or something else entirely. Then she looked back at Graham. "And you deserve to know that your entire career is built on a lie. You're not a friend to these celebrities. You're a glorified salesman." Graham didn't rise to the bait. "If that's what you think, then I'm sorry I couldn't change your mind." "You couldn't," Jennifer confirmed. She started walking toward the stage exit, her heels clicking loudly in the silent studio. Graham watched her go, his expression unreadable. The cameras continued rolling, capturing every moment of the unprecedented scene. Jennifer reached the edge of the stage and paused. For a second, it looked like she might turn around, might say something else. But she didn't. She stepped off the stage and disappeared into the wings. The studio remained silent for several long seconds. Nobody seemed to know what to do or say. Then Graham turned to face the audience, his expression weary but kind. "Well," he said with a sad smile, "that was unexpected." A few nervous laughs rippled through the crowd. "I want to apologize," Graham continued. "You all came here for an entertaining evening, and instead you witnessed something rather uncomfortable. It's not your fault," someone called out from the audience, and several others murmured in agreement. Graham nodded, visibly touched by the support. "Thank you. That's very kind." He paused, collecting himself. "I think we all have difficult days. We all have moments when things feel overwhelming. I hope Jennifer finds whatever peace she's looking for." The sincerity in his voice was unmistakable. Even after everything that had happened, there was no bitterness, no anger, just genuine concern. "Should we continue?" Graham asked the audience. "I believe we still have a musical performance scheduled." The audience applauded, showing their support. But behind the scenes, chaos had erupted. Producers were scrambling, trying to figure out how to handle what had just happened. Jennifer's publicist was frantically making phone calls. Security had been alerted when Jennifer stormed off, unsure if they needed to intervene. In the wings, Jennifer stood alone, breathing heavily. The adrenaline that had fueled her outburst was beginning to fade, replaced by something that looked a lot like regret. One of the show's producers approached her cautiously. "Ms. Garner, are you all right? Can we get you anything?" Jennifer shook her head, unable to meet the producer's eyes. "I just need to leave." "Of course," the producer said professionally. "Let me escort you out." As they walked through the backstage corridors, Jennifer could hear the show continuing. Graham's voice floated through the speakers, warm and engaging, as he introduced the musical guest. It was as if the last 15 minutes hadn't happened. And the show went on. They reached the exit where Jennifer's car was waiting. The producer held the door open for her. "For what it's worth," the producer said quietly. "I hope you're okay." Jennifer looked at her, really looked at her, and saw genuine concern in the young woman's eyes. "Thank you," Jennifer managed, her voice cracking slightly. She got into the car, and the door closed behind her. As the vehicle pulled away from the studio, Jennifer stared out the window at the building growing smaller in the distance. Inside, Graham Norton continued the show with grace and professionalism. He made no further mention of what had happened, instead focusing entirely on his remaining guest. When the show finally wrapped, Graham retreated to his dressing room. He sat down heavily, the weight of the evening settling on his shoulders. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. It was one of the senior producers. "That was handled beautifully," the producer said. "You maintained your composure throughout." Graham offered a weak smile. "Thank you, though I can't help but feel like I failed somehow." "You didn't fail," the producer assured him. "You gave her every opportunity to turn things around." Graham nodded. "I keep thinking about what she said, about the show being fake." "You know that's not true," the producer said firmly. "What happened tonight wasn't about you." Graham was quiet for a moment. "I hope she gets the help she needs." The producer left, and Graham sat alone with his thoughts. The evening had been unlike anything he'd experienced in his long career. Meanwhile, in the car, Jennifer's phone was exploding with messages. She turned it off and tossed it aside. Back at the studio, the audience was filing out, buzzing with conversation. "Did that really just happen?" one audience member asked her friend. "I still can't believe it," the friend replied. "She just completely lost it." "I felt so bad for Graham," another person chimed in. "He tried so hard to keep it together." "He's such a professional," someone else agreed. Inside the studio, the crew was breaking down the set. The red couch where the confrontation had unfolded was being carefully positioned for the next day's taping. Graham finally emerged from his dressing room, ready to head home. As he walked through the empty studio, he paused by the famous red couch. He ran his hand along the back of it, thinking about all the conversations that had happened there over the years. And now, this. He shook his head and continued walking. Tomorrow there would be another show, another guest. But tonight, all he could think about was Jennifer's face when she'd admitted she was tired. That moment of vulnerability before the walls went back up. He hoped she would find whatever she was looking for. As Graham stepped out into the cool London night, he took a deep breath and let it out slowly. The show would go on. It always did. But this night would stay with him for a long time to come. Jennifer's car pulled up to her hotel. She made her way inside, past the curious looks of the staff. In her room, she finally allowed herself to break down. The tears came fast and hard. She didn't know why she'd done it. Didn't know where all that anger had come from. But he wasn't the enemy. He'd never been the enemy. She was. She'd sabotaged herself, burned a bridge, created a disaster where none needed to exist. The question haunted her as she cried into her pillow, alone in a hotel room thousands of miles from home. Back at the studio, the last of the lights went out. The building settled into silence. The red couch sat empty, waiting for tomorrow. And in the morning, Graham Norton would return to that stage and welcome new guests with the same warmth he always had. Because that's what he did. That's who he was. The night Jennifer Garner was kicked off the Graham Norton show would become legend. People would talk about it for years. But those who were there would remember a host who maintained his dignity. They would remember a man who offered compassion even when attacked. They would remember why Graham Norton had become one of television's most beloved figures. Not because he was perfect, but because he was kind,